been a while since I've done a Q&A. Thanks a lot, guys, for sending me your questions. I'm really looking forward to doing this again. It's been a crazy few weeks for me, so I've had to put my priorities in the right place. But I'm here now, and here we go. From G. Colby Porter, what would you say are some of your favorite songs of all time? Bon Jovi's It's My Life. Yeah, that's probably the number one. Also, Pearl Jam's I Am Mine. Those two I would say are my all-time favorites. Yeah, I'm gonna go with those two. You did a video on movies you like but everyone else hates. Would you consider doing the opposite, movies everyone loved but you didn't like? If not, can you list them off the top of your head? Oh, you see, I don't know if I can do that video or come up with a list because, I mean, maybe this is just me. I very rarely find a movie to be terrible. And even if everybody else likes it, I tend to be the one who says, that wasn't that bad. I know I have a tendency to look for the good side of everything. Hence why I probably don't have a list. If I had to pick one that I didn't like but everyone else does, it would, I know, I don't care if I'm gonna get hate for this. Rogue One. I don't understand it, but that's just me. I've already done quite a few videos on it in the past. I might do another one, maybe expanding further on why it doesn't really work for me, but that's probably the only one I could think of. So sorry, but I probably won't be able to come up with a list for you on that one. Don't mind me, just adjusting the camera angle really quick. Who's a beloved director you can never get into? You know, similar to the movies I don't like but everyone else does, I don't really think I have one that I can't really get into. I like to appreciate something that somebody does, even if it doesn't fully resonate with me. I can at least respect them for putting their vision out there. I almost said Alejandro Iñárritu, who made Birdman and The Revenant, but it's just those two that I've been able to go off of, so I don't know the rest of his filmography outside of that. Same thing for Stanley Kubrick, who I probably would have gone with, but then again, I've only seen Full Metal Jacket. I've never seen The Shining or Eyes Wide Shut. Spartacus, I did see that, but that was a long time ago, so I don't really remember that. So no, I guess I can't really say that I have one. Who's an actor or celebrity whose work helps cheer you up? For me, it's Jim Carrey and Conan O'Brien. Definitely Robin Williams, rest his soul. Tom Hanks, Tom Cruise. I know it's somewhat of a controversial mention, but something to do with the Toms. They tend to bring out some joy in me somehow. Different types of work, but they have their own ways. As for talk show hosts, since you mentioned Conan O'Brien, I really liked David Letterman when I was younger. Yeah, I'd probably start typing too. What are some independent films or Oscar-related films you skipped over the past few years that you would be interested in reviewing? I know you're probably going to mention to me Poor Things, which you said you'd be really shocked, dude, if I were to watch it. I think I might actually give it a shot, even if its content might... I might find it unsettling in some areas, but I think I'm going to give it a try. Can't guarantee it, though. I'd also really like to check out Jojo Rabbit. We're kind of going a little further back over the past couple of years, like 5 years ago, actually. Hearing Zach Pope discuss it with Ren Geekness in one of their podcasts a couple of years ago, he was talking about how Jojo Rabbit would have you laughing in one scene when he mentions the shoe scene. And immediately, I was intrigued. I thought, oh, maybe I should check that out. And one Oscar film, we're going further back in time. A Star is Born, Bradley Cooper, Lady Gaga. Never got around to it, but I heard so many great things about it. And the way Bradley Cooper looks in that movie looks a lot like this guy right here, Eddie Vedder. And I heard he took some inspiration for how Eddie Vedder conducts himself musically. So when I learned that, I thought, okay, now I have to check this out. Have you started watching The Penguin or some of the Plus shows like Loki Season 2 and Agatha? I got 2 episodes into Agatha. I haven't been able to catch up with it lately due to scheduling and life busyness getting in the way. Penguin I have yet to watch, but I want to catch up with it eventually. Loki Season 2 I did watch, and I never got around to reviewing it, but I really loved how it ended, with Loki going where he ends up with the Universal Tree of Life. Guess if I'm putting that correctly. There's a lot of stuff I want to catch up on, and I know, like with She-Hulk, Miss Marvel, that I reviewed a little later, some time ago. Probably going to end up in a similar situation with those two, and I want to check out that animated X-Men 97 series. I heard it was really good. I'm gonna make an effort to get to those pretty soon. Are you more excited for what James Gunn has in store for DC in the future or the upcoming Marvel projects? I have a lot more confidence in Marvel since Kevin Feige has proven himself in the past, and I know some people out there are still not thrilled about Robert Downey Jr. coming back as Dr. Doom. I'm still in a wait-and-see mode. I've watched a couple of videos from Screen Crush talking about how they could incorporate him into the MCU, that maybe he's been hiding since the events of Age of Ultron. I don't know if that's what they're gonna do. I haven't really looked into the discourse much about what could happen. They obviously have the right people involved, it's just that they have to make some adjustments. As far as DC with James Gunn, I don't really know what to expect. I'm really happy that they're not going to cancel Robert Pattinson's Batman series. Oh my god, The Lighthouse! I just remembered. Back to one of your previous questions. I want to check out that movie. I believe that got some Oscar buzz at the time of its release. Anyway, back to your original question with DC. Gonna wait and see what they do. I wasn't too thrilled with the DCEU. If I had to guess, I would say maybe James Gunn could be what Kevin Feige has been doing for Marvel, and maybe to a point Jon Favreau with Star Wars, along with Dave Filoni. Then again, it could go completely south once again, given DC's track record, and I think they're long overdue. I saw the picture with David Cornsweet as Superman. We'll find out. I don't know, but I'm just kind of, ambivalent at the moment. An actor you think is better than people give them credit for. For me, it's Ryan Reynolds and Zac Efron. Besides the obvious Tobey Maguire for me, because I still maintain that he's extremely underrated. I would say probably James McAvoy. I haven't seen too much of his stuff. He doesn't really get talked about as far as like the top actors in the Hollywood scene, comparison especially to his pal Michael Fassbender. James McAvoy kind of gets left in the background. I think he's very great at what he does. Obviously, it's an IP franchise, but his role as Charles Xavier, I think he really nailed it, especially in Days of Future Past. His performance in Split, I mean, whatever your thoughts are on M. Night Shyamalan, anybody who's watching, just watch that movie for James McAvoy alone, and you'll have a different idea of what he's like. Ryan Reynolds, I haven't really seen much outside of Deadpool. I did see him in this one film with Helen Mirren. I guess it had something to do with the Holocaust. Zac Efron. Oh, you know, I always thought of him as some heartthrob that wasn't going to get anywhere after High School Musical, but by the time I saw him in Neighbors, I was actually very impressed that he was able to grow past that. And you mentioned the Iron Claw, which I'll put that on the list too. And 17, again, is probably not the greatest example to go off of, but that scene where he humiliates the bully in front of the entire school in the cafeteria, that is just flawless. And I'm admitting that is what I've wanted to say about certain people that I don't like right to their faces. Band/music artists you love but people hate, and a band/music artist people love that you can't get into. So if I'm being honest, I'm not really as knowledgeable on music, so I can't really give you a definitive answer on that first part of the question. The second part, you're gonna hate me for saying this, but I've tried listening to Nirvana. I can't get into it. It doesn't do it for me. Teen Spirit is fine. I can listen to it when I'm driving in the car if I have it on the radio. I'll just leave it on in the background. I'll just kind of the musical arrangement, the guitars, the drums, and all that. That's perfectly fine, but it's Kurt Cobain's voice. No disrespect to him, rest his soul, but I've never liked it. And something in the way, I probably would say that's the only one of theirs I like, because, big shocker, I heard it in The Batman 2 years ago. Finally, what would you say have been your favorites and least favorite projects in phases 4 and 5 in the MCU so far? I want to catch up on Secret Invasion. I only watched the pilot episode, and I didn't get anywhere past that because for some reason I just got distracted and I never got back to it. Looking back in hindsight, I didn't really love Love and Thunder. I didn't hate it, but, well, I haven't really watched it since I saw it in theaters over 2 years ago. I want to try to rewatch it and see if it does have the same effect on me as it did back then. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania I thought was just not terrible, but not good. I guess that's probably my least favorite of the last couple of years from the MCU, because it's just them going through the quantum realm, and there's really no narrative through line to carry everything. Scott doesn't really, well, I guess he does experience some kind of an arc, but I don't really feel like it had some emotional heft to it, like I saw in the first film, and even to a certain point the second movie, because Scott was trying to get himself out of jail by helping his daughter, and also with Hank Pym coming to terms with expressing to his daughter what really happened to her mother. Then we were finally going to see the quantum realm, and it's just really just Bill Murray shows up, which, you know, he's fun to see in anything that he's in, but it doesn't really add anything to it, at least with Russell Crowe, even though I didn't really like Russell Crowe as Zeus. He at least served some kind of purpose, from what I remember. But again, I have to watch that, just to make sure that I'm not talking baloney. If I had to pick a least favorite, it's definitely Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. As far as favorites go, I just remembered you asked that part too. Yeah, I'm gonna say it. Spider-Man No Way Home. It wasn't quite as big as the cinematic moment that we experienced 2 years prior in Endgame, but when Tobey Maguire walks through that portal, I still get excited after all this time. I mean, it wasn't too long ago that it happened, and it's 3 years ago next month, if you could believe it. Next set of questions is from Ross. Thanks, man, for following me. You always are very supportive and very positive and uplifting on my channel, so thanks, man, for all your support. Looking forward to seeing what you do with your channel, especially with your video essays. Hope you're doing well. I am now. It's just, October was just, like I said, very crazy month. I'm not going to get into all the details. A lot of stuff was taking up my time and energy, and I just needed to put myself to rest for a little bit, as far as like giving my body and my spirit and mind a rest, if you know what I mean. But I'm here now. Thank you. What movie do you think is underrated or overrated? I don't really know if I have a movie that's very overrated. Underrated, the list goes on and on and on. So I'm not going to be able to give you a specific one. Which actor/actress would you like to see in a film together, in which genre? I don't really care which genre it is, to be honest with you. But if I were to see Tobey Maguire and Jennifer Lawrence in the same movie together as the two leads, I would not hesitate to go see that in the least bit. Tobey Maguire and Christian Bale, I would love to see that. I mean, Spider-Man and Batman in the same movie? I mean, come on. And I'll segue into the actor/director collaboration. I would love to see Tobey Maguire collaborate with Chris Nolan or Martin Scorsese even, or maybe even Steven Spielberg. What if Tom Cruise was in a movie with Jennifer Lawrence? I mean, I think that would get a lot of people's attention. Final question, top 5 favorite MCU characters. Oh my god, really? Captain America, Spider-Man, Iron Man, the Falcon, Sam Wilson, Loki. I love Loki. Next set of questions from John McKinney. I love J.K. Simmons as Jonah Jameson, but I kind of wish Arlie Ermey had played the part instead. Do you think that would have worked? That's an interesting idea. If it were 30 years ago, if they were to make a Spider-Man movie back then, I could easily see him being that kind of shouting, yelling, and irate newspaper editor type. Full Metal Jacket is probably the obvious example to go off of. But if it were Arlie Ermey, I would have been curious if there was an alternate reality to go to and see what he would have been like. I heard it suggested by someone a long time ago that maybe Kevin Bacon could have been Jonah Jameson. He kind of has the look. I mean, just fix up his hair, give him a mustache, and he has that sarcastic flair that you'd want to see in Jonah Jameson. If those were the alternatives, I don't think I would have had a problem with that. If Norman Osborn is recast in the MCU, who would you like to see play him? My choices are Jason Isaacs or Mark Strong. Either one would be fine with me, especially Mark Strong. He makes a great villain. And this next question's a long one, so I'll try to condense it for you guys. Are you getting tired of sympathetic villains? I'm not a fan of villains who are evil just for the sake of it, but I think the villains becoming sympathetic is very cliche by now. Just because the villain is the hero of their own story doesn't mean they have to be redeemable or feel bad for them. Basically, to sum it up, do I think it's becoming cliched somewhat? You know, I don't necessarily think so. I mean, I guess if you tend to watch the ones that have those types of sympathetic villains, then maybe I would see your point on that one. Even with some of the MCU, the villains have been kind of cookie cutter and straightforward with their villainous schemes. I mean, Kang the Conqueror, I didn't really see any sympathy that you could feel for him, except for maybe a variant or two of his. With Norman Osborn as the Green Goblin, I definitely understand, you know, the sympathy for him there, because clearly he's shifting in and out of different personalities, and the formula still has its hold on him. I'm talking about No Way Home specifically, in case I didn't remember. My brain is still kind of mush, so just bear with me. I guess maybe it wouldn't hurt to kind of even it out if we're going to see a Doctor Doom pretty soon in Robert Downey Jr., whenever that might happen. Maybe it could be an evening out of that kind of stuff. You could still have the sympathetic villains and the pure evil type of arch nemesis, if that's the right way to put it. So yeah, I don't think it's necessarily becoming cliched. If they were to revert back to the old, I'm the bad guy, then people would start to call that out too as a bunch of bull. So it makes me wonder if Hollywood was going to be asked by certain movie audiences, you know, why not just go back to the straightforward villains that we had before? Like, well, we did have those, and you criticize it for being too corny. Now we do it this way. Much better for everyone. Do I consider the Punisher a hero or an anti-hero? Punisher does kill, but keep in mind that he kills criminals, not innocent people. See, I don't know a whole ton about the Punisher. I didn't really get that far into season 2 of Daredevil, but I do remember the rooftop scene where Frank Castle's handcuffed to something on the roof, or maybe he was Daredevil. I don't remember exactly. The different clashing of ideologies. I mean, it's similar to what we saw with him and the Kingpin. Just a sidebar here. I need to get caught up on the rest of the series of Daredevil, especially with the new version of it coming up soon. You know, if I had to say, he's probably an anti-hero. He has a good reason for doing what he does, but since he doesn't kill innocent people, he just kills the bad guy. So yeah, I guess that does make him an anti-hero, whereas Batman, he doesn't kill people. He's not supposed to kill people because of what happened with his parents, so he has a moral code that he swears not to cross. To my knowledge, I don't think Frank Castle has that kind of set of morals. Correct me if I'm wrong, if you're a comic book reader who knows the source material. But yeah, I probably would go with anti-hero, to be honest. Disney doing live-action remakes. Do people forget that it's actually started back in the 1990s, from The Jungle Book in 94, 101 Dalmatians in 1996. Yeah, now that you brought that up, that's actually a good point. You know, this isn't exactly a recent phenomenon with the live-action remakes. It was a big thing during my childhood anyway. I saw parts of The Jungle Book from 94. I don't remember a whole ton of it. The 101 Dalmatians, yes, I have seen with Glenn Close. That laugh I remember more than anything. You want an actress who can play evil without any type of struggle? Glenn Close is your choice. Kind of like Willem Dafoe, where she looks scary, but I would say she scares me a lot more than the other guy does. But do people forget that it started back in the 1990s? I think it would help to educate some people who act like this is a recent thing. People tend to have collective amnesia about a lot of stuff. And I think for some people, it's important to educate the masses on the actual truth. One question, how do you manage to look so handsome? Genetics, I guess? That was a random question, but okay. Thank you, I guess. Last set of questions from Kelvin Mendez. Hey man, how you doing? It's been a long time since I commented on your videos, but I've been here the whole time. Hope you're doing well. Thanks, bud. First question, now that you finished reviewing the prequels, could you review the Clone Wars animated show, both 2003 and 2008? And Rebels in the near future, along with the Bad Batch? You know, you, along with a friend of mine in real life... Well, my friend in real life especially, he's been hassling me for years to watch those things. And I started watching a little bit of Rebels, but I kind of dropped it some time ago, but I do want to finish it eventually. I'm probably going to have to restart all over again because I got distracted so easily. And I guess I have a similar disdain that people have towards animation where it's just too kiddie and it's not really relevant. I also have to remember there's other animated films out there that are very high level of quality. And from what I do remember of Rebels, I remember thinking, actually, it's not that bad. It's actually quite good. Rebels I'll probably condense. Clone Wars I'll probably review each season individually. Bad Batch I would like to check out. I heard that there was some mentioning of the start of the cloning process and how Palpatine would use that later on, especially in light of the Rise of Skywalker. I know, that's a big controversial topic, but hey, it's important to note from a lore perspective, at least. I promise I'm gonna get to those eventually. Daredevil Born Again's release date confirmed to be in March of next year. Could we see an updated and in-depth review of Season 1 and reviews of Season 2 and 3, which you've never reviewed on your channel? Yeah, I would definitely love to revisit Season 1 because I really loved how they constructed it. And Season 2, I was getting through the first few episodes, but then the stuff with the hand and Elektra, that kind of lost me. Season 3 I've seen clips of, especially the famous "I beat you!" And just from that scene alone, I was exhausted, seeing just how bloodied up both of those guys were. And I realized, okay, I really got some catching up to do. So yeah, I'll definitely be doing an updated review on Season 1, and I'm going to be getting caught up on Seasons 2 and 3. Next question. I know you said on occasion you're not a big horror movie fan with a few exceptions, and some horror subgenres you don't bother watching. However, with you saying you wanted to broaden your horizons when it comes to film, could you try that with horror? Yeah, horror is still not really my kind of thing. I have considered watching the Alien films. I don't know about watching The Fly. I'll just get that out there. I've seen the clip where he transforms into the Fly. John Carpenter's The Thing. I might do that. Evil Dead, I would definitely like to check out, especially when it comes to Sam Raimi. He made the original 3 Spider-Man films. I feel like I owe it to myself after 20 plus years. What are your thoughts on the minority of comic book fans who say the Raimi films change public perception of how general audiences view Peter Parker as a character for the worse? They criticize Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker for being too much of a nerdy pushover, comparing him to Christopher Reeve's Clark Kent, say that he doesn't stand up for himself when people give him crap in the trilogy. Oh, the age-old question. You know, I can say for a fact, I've read the early Spider-Man comics from the 60s. Not all of them. I've read fair share of them. Long story short, when Spider-Man 3 was coming out, my grandparents, my mom's parents, were living out in Oceanside, California, on the West Coast. I live in the Eastern Seaboard. They knew I was into Spider-Man, so their local newspaper was getting these special one-issue comics every month in anticipation for Spider-Man 3's release. So they sent it to me in the mail, and I would read them. And I found it kind of interesting to see how the comic book counterpart is compared to Tobey Maguire's portrayal. I would definitely like to do more videos on Spider-Man in the future. I know it's probably going to drive some people crazy. I would like to expand my horizons on that. But this is a discussion that I don't think will ever really end, and I think it's important for me to speak out on this. But I definitely noticed the differences and similarities between Peter 2 and his comic book counterpart. The most important thing to note is that he's a very caring, sweet, and kind person. And Peter Parker in the comics was definitely like that, even if he has more of a backbone as the comics went on. I mean, he didn't really take any crap from Flash after a while. Whereas in Tobey Maguire's film, they didn't really spend a lot of time with him in high school, and he was already in college and practically an adult by the time the second film came around. And I think, you know, for those comic book purists who don't like seeing a change in a character's personality, I certainly understand if they want things to be accurate to a T, because if you are someone who likes pure 100% accuracy, it's going to drive you crazy. But the thing is, with creatives in Hollywood, and even outside of that with everybody's got their own vision of what a character should be like, or how they should sound, how they should talk. Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, I think, is more timid and a little more serious than his comic book counterpart. Though in No Way Home, he was a little more sure of himself and more confident, although he still retained his soft-spokenness, if you will. But I think that's important to note, that if you watch all three films and then you see his performance in No Way Home, it's clear that he's progressed a lot over the last nearly 20 years, however much time has passed in between the timeline. We're veering into the weeds on the multiversal territory here. And I'm going on and on about this question. I'm trying to keep it short, I promise. And the thing about the comparison to Clark Kent by Christopher Reeve, that was the big comic book film, besides Michael Keaton's Batman, that really resonated with general audiences. And, you know, a lot of people to this day still point to Christopher Reeve as their Superman. Mostly people in my parents' generation and beyond that. I think a similar thing with my generation and some other people younger than me will feel the same way about Tobey Maguire. But to really sum it up, comic book fans who don't like the way that Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker was portrayed, I think they have every right to feel the way that they want to. But I think they have to realize that Hollywood, when they adapt something, it's called an adaptation for a reason. It's not going to be exactly the same as it was when you first watched it, or first read it, excuse me. Once you get past that, and if you can appreciate something for what it is, then I think you'll have a much better experience. More likely, probably, I don't know how that coincides together, but that's a guarantee I make. And also, if people can be fine with Robert Downey Jr.'s portrayal of Iron Man not being exactly like his comic book counterpart, why is it so different with Tobey Maguire? That's all the questions. Thank you guys so much for sending them to me and for being patient with me. I'm going to try to rev up my channel again pretty soon, especially after the last video I put out. I'm really looking forward to doing more video essays in the future. I really am proud of how I was able to do that, along with the one similarity between Last of Us and Spider-Man, but things do take time. So bear with me as I try to get things back up and running again. Thanks again, guys, for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.